Hi, welcome to the first video I'm making. Honestly, I'm really shocked. It was not planned at all. But today we're going to talk about something that I think is very interesting. It's somehow philosophical, but it really is humanistic. So I've been recently reading a book called *Sapiens*, and it talks about what makes us Homo sapiens unique and different from other people. Like, there have been lots of human species. There's been Homo neanderthalensis, the Neanderthals, Homo erectus, Australopithecus, the southern ape. There's been lots of people, lots of humans, but like I think today we're going to be exploring more what exactly makes us unique and why have we, of all those human species, survived for longer? Is it because we're smarter? Is it because we have a straighter posture? I doubt. But we're going to take this book piece by piece. Feel free to give me your ideas in the comments below and ask anything you want to ask. So in this book, *Sapiens*, Noah Harari takes apart the history of humans, different species. Now he talks about how 150,000 years ago, that is epic, the sapiens, us, refers to us as sapiens, not necessarily Homo sapiens, because the whole book is about Homo, so us sapiens, who populated East Africa 150,000 years ago. But then 70,000 years ago, something changed. Honestly, we don't know, he doesn't know either, but it's still under debate, it's under discussion that there is something that's changed between those 80,000 years. Now, his logic is that the invention of fire did everything. It changed lots of things. Now, first of all, when I first read that part, I was like, bro, what? Fire? Fire? I did not understand it. But let me make it make sense. So, before, humans were hunters and gatherers, but then they didn't have fire, so they didn't cook. So they'd maybe hunt a deer, eat it raw. I guess I have no idea how they did it. I just cannot picture myself eating a raw animal and surviving. Yes. So the invention of fire permitted them to cook, and now when they cooked, it saved them a lot of time and energy in digestion, and now it means that the digestive system required much less energy, and now that energy that was surplus went to the brain. Now on the brain receiving extra energy, it was like, okay, more energy, perfect, I love it. Now the brain expanded and it started stretching to much more than just living, than just hunting, gathering, sleeping, finding the next cave, the next tree, or getting the girl next door, or next cave, pun intended. Yes. So now the fact that they started thinking promoted their lives, it made it much more easier. So this, I'm going to say the way it is. It means that the women had more time to spend at home. But then let me get back to the brain part. So I was saying the brain had more energy to do its activities, so it expanded. And the brain, when it expanded, the head also expanded, which means that women could not, do their business normally. The child had to be born a bit earlier when the head was much smaller to be able to pass, because back then they didn't have cesarean sections. I mean, as far as history tells us, they did not. So it was all natural and the head had to fit. And then he points out how, of all species on this planet, only Homo sapiens gives birth to children who are weak, dependent, and not fully grown. But that is because the head is too big, and it can't really pass there. So when the child is born, the child is dependent on the parent, and they have lots of things to do, and they cannot just hunt while having a baby in the back. I feel like that was not their train of thought. So they decided to just stay home, take care of the baby, and then there was the neighboring woman, the other woman who also had triplets, things like those. And I believe that really helped them form a society. But then when they came together, all babysitting their children, I believe they did not just talk about how the hunting was. And that takes me to what I personally believe makes us different. It sounds very weird, but our ability to gossip is the reason we're still here. Yes, because those women, they were sitting there really, chilling, taking care of their babies, feeding them, changing their diapers if they had them of their own type and time. I have no idea, but they had things to talk about in those times. They'll talk about how the husband of one of them was, doing something sneaky, and telling those stories really. The stories are a core part of community, and it's also a core part of what we are as humans. So those stories did not just involve the facts, like gorilla, run. That was the communication we had before that cognitive revolution, and the cognitive revolution is what Harari refers to as 70,000 years ago. Now, that cognitive revolution brought with it the capacity of us to give complex, concrete information. Now, before that, we could only communicate and be like, snake, run, right? Those kind of things. But now, humans were developing the ability to communicate complex ideas. For example, if I told you that the UN, you will understand what I mean. You understand that I mean most countries on the earth. But honestly, I did not use those words. That is something very complex, and that is something else that what's his name again? There's this linguist, this Jewish linguist. I don't remember exactly his name. Sorry, just to lead away. And he's talking about how, regardless of where you're born, your mind has super language capacities, right? Like, let me give you an example. If I want to say, I want to eat a chicken, you know that you will say that in your particular language. You'll not say, a chicken want I eat too. Now, who tells us that? It's not because we learned the language, because learning a language is something else altogether. But our minds are so complex that we can develop such complex ideas and understand how languages work. And honestly, I think that is whoa, that is big, that is epic. And really, Harari really points to gossip. That's why we're here. Let me give a bigger example. Money really is nothing more than an idea. It's just paper. It's paper. Here I have a book with me, right? This is a book, but I can't call it money. But then there is a specific type of paper that has value, that you can exchange with something else and get it, and that is money. And it's just the difference between this and that and the actual money is the value we attach to that money. Yet truly, in the actual sense, money does not actually have value. We attribute value to it, and that is gossip again, because like we're attributing complex information to simple things, right? And then back in this book, I was reading about the legend of Peugeot, and I was like, what is the legend of Peugeot anyways? And I was like, is it the Peugeot I'm thinking about? I was like, nah, it can't be. I mean, it's philosophy. It can't really bring in business and all that. And well, I was wrong. The legend of Peugeot is really, it's almost straightforward. It talks about Peugeot, yes, the car brand. Now, look at the company. I mean, let's start from the origins. There was the man called Peugeot. I don't remember his other name, but let's call him Mr. Peugeot, who's French. Then he started a motor vehicle company. That was him. He was the Peugeot that we're talking about, right? Then he brought up a company of cars called Peugeot, a brand called Peugeot. Now, that Peugeot was something very different from him, right? For example, when he died and the company was taken into other people's hands, it was still called Peugeot, even though Peugeot had died, right? Like, it was a whole other entity. It was like, let's say I'm Peugeot, right? So I sell a car and it's faulty. The client sues Peugeot, not me. Yet I am Peugeot, the owner of the company. And honestly, that is really complex. I mean, usually it makes sense, It makes sense that I am Peugeot, that is Peugeot. You sue the company, not me, not the owner. But the legend of Peugeot points out how much value we add to things, and we actually think it's the same thing. But then it applies to nations too, because we say that a nation is like land and people within borders. Where are the borders? I've never had the opportunity to go, near a border, but I believe that there is no actual line, an actual line showing where the country ends and where the other country begins. And these complex ideas, really, they keep baffling me. And then also in the book Sapiens, Harari talks about the legend of Peugeot as he talks about Peugeot as a corporation, which is ironic because in the dictionary they talk about corporation. Its roots there is corp, which means a body. However, Peugeot does not have a body because here Peugeot is a completely separate entity. It's a completely separate entity. If you have a problem with Peugeot, it's the company, not the person. Like the person started the company, but the company is completely independent from the person. And obviously that is like that shows how complex truly human evolution has been. The past 70,000 years have been epic because we've done lots of things. Just the mere invention of fire. Do you believe this, guys? Personally, I did not grasp it till now. Like I read this book like 2 months ago, but I still cannot understand. I cannot grasp how the invention of fire led to us creating fiction, creating gossip, complex information. Because like let's say Peugeot has it's a big company, it's a multinational company. It has dealers in France, dealers in the US, dealers in Canada, dealers in Mexico, and they don't know each other. But if you look at any of them, they will still work just as well as they were working in the other place. Because they're united by that idea of Peugeot. Yeah, it's deep. No, to me, it really is deep. But then it leads me to wonder on a few things, though. Because some things just they don't click enough yet. But then, like the way we're talking about money, nations, the law, justice, gender equality, as ideas, right? Those smart, complex ideas. I wonder, where did this idea of I want to know seriously, and I'm asking you to answer me like your ideas in the comments. Like, why do we believe that we cannot attain 100%? Perfection, injustice, 100%, gender equality, things like those. Why do we not, like, why? Who brought up that rumor that we cannot achieve 100%, that we cannot achieve perfection? I mean, who brought out that myth? Because, like, why didn't they bring the myth that reaching that 100% is actually possible if we find the right strategies? Because honestly, I believe that for some of these things, it's really possible to do them perfectly. I mean, the reason I'm kind of doubting this is because the myth has taken a lot of power nowadays. So it's hard to believe that we can do most of these things. But then another question I wonder though, like, we're talking about how the Sapiens first occupied East Africa, then they went to Europe, and then to Australia. I do not understand how they went to Australia, by the way. I tried doing my research, but I still do not understand. How did they reach Australia? But yeah, they occupied the East Africa, then went to Europe, America, Australia. They went to all those places. But then I wonder, why is it that let's ignore the existence of telephones or any other forms of communication that can, be between countries and continents, right? Let's just ignore their existence, right? But then I wonder, why do we all believe in a universal law of morality? Because I've never, and if you have ever heard of me, please enlighten me. I would greatly appreciate that. But I've never heard of a place that thinks that killing people is okay, except in the case of justice. That is something, it's a topic for another day, but really, I've never heard of a place where killing someone is just as okay as drinking water. I've never heard of a place where stealing is encouraged. I've never heard of a place where, all these crimes that we have in our country are the same, like, are the opposite, are actually good things in another country. I've never heard of that. But then, if we've never met each other, if we are all just in different places, we have never communicated, who brought this? Is it a common myth? Yet we have never met? I wonder. So I really am still questioning how we all have a universal law of morality and where it could have come from. Yeah, because it's one of the questions that I'm really, really motivated about nowadays. And then another question I have though is a question: where does the myth of politeness and etiquette come from? Where did it come from? Like the way to say that, you have to, if you're eating, you you have to have a knife in your right hand and etiquette, politeness. You have a knife in your right hand and a fork in your left hand, and then you cut your small bit of food and you put it in your mouth delicately. I mean, who said that? Who came up with that? I mean, besides the fact that you're putting some of us in a very uncomfortable position, why? Why do we have those habits of etiquette, of politeness? You know, why do you have to even say good morning to someone you don't know? You know, like you just go there and you're like, good morning, how are you? When you generally do not know and you most likely don't even care. I wonder who brought that up, because I feel like every culture in the world has one way or another of showing etiquette and politeness. But then, yeah, I guess we'll never really understand the complexity of humanity, the complexity of us sapiens. Because, yes, I mean, I'm talking about how fire led to us having bigger brains, lots of things, and us having community and us having gossip and all of that. But really, there's some things that I believe we're just not ready for. Yeah. So I think that was our talk for today. If you have any ideas, please slide them down in the comments. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Ignore my hair. Ignore my hair, really. It's there's a myth in Rwanda that secondary school students should shave their heads. So yeah, let me still abide by that myth. I still want to be part of this school, which is also a myth. Yes, so thank you so much for having tuned in. Hopefully I'll see you the next time. No, actually, I'll see me the next time, because I'm probably a myth to you too. You have no idea. You have no guarantee that I exist. This philosophy is really giving a lot of philosophy. Thank you so much. See you later. Ciao.